Let's get to our next interview now. Bonk has been right at the center of the action in the Solana ecosystem. It started as a meme coin and has grown into a token with utility across wallets, games, and even payments platforms. Joining the show now is Bonk core contributor Nom. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak here at CoinDesk Live.
Well, thanks for being here. Now, okay, there was a time when you would come to Consensus and everyone was talking about meme coins. There were dogs everywhere. Yep. That seems to have really changed over the last few years. It's feeling a lot more mature. Talk to me about how you're experiencing Consensus as a core contributor of Bonk.
So there is still one Shiba who is hanging out with a kimono just off stage, which has been fantastic. But yeah, it's been great to see, obviously, the maturity of the ecosystem. I think you're seeing a lot of the interest in what's referred to like the TradFi sectors of the ecosystem. A lot of institutional adoption, which we've been talking about. The bankers are finally coming for your Bitcoin. It's awesome to hear. But it's been good to see a lot of the companies that were focused around just like pure speculation or utilization are now moving into how they can build consumer-based products, what they can look forward to, and how the attention economy exists on chain, which I think is the basis of all memes.
What does the evolution of that attention economy look like to you? I know you were on stage talking about the evolution for NFTs and meme coins, but talk to me about that future you see as you build.
Yeah, the interesting thing that you see coming out of like profile picture kind of like NFTs, right? The initial areas of Bored Apes, of the Solana Monkey business NFTs, all these sorts of things turns into, well, what does your data look like if it's represented by that same area? Each one of us is still non-fungible by design. That's part of the reason why all these different platforms are enjoying selling your data, that they're learning about you as a customer, as a consumer. And it's easy to take a look at your Spotify profile or your Twitter profile and look at those as like, okay, what does that actually mean for your traits, your habits, your interests, your opportunities? These are all things that are being sold as advertising data. And you can take the understanding of that as like, each of these individual consumers is realistically going to look at this a few years down the line and be like, okay, well, my data obviously has value. It's being continuously bought, sold, traded. What does that actually mean for me and myself? And then you can apply that to, okay, well, what do the things that I'm watching look like? If I'm using certain emojis in text conversations, are these things more valuable than others? What does that look like? What does usage equate to as more and more things move into like on-chain messaging? You see that with like Telegram starting to monetize like their sticker packs, right? It's coming in very, very interesting ways right now where I think the memes and the funny things that we talked about, over the course of the past couple of years have now started to turn into a little bit of the financialization that I think we've talked about previously in crypto.
Bonk, I remember when it launched on Solana, it was interesting kind of context at the time because Solana was obviously identified with SBF and it had some problems coming out of that, and some people were down on Solana. It was like SBF's chain, and it seemed like Bonk came out and really revitalized the story around Solana, and then we've had this kind of meme coin explosion. Just talk about that and how you played a role in the kind of revitalization of Solana.
Yeah, one of the core theses of Bonk was that the problem that, well, one of the problems that came out of FTX and all of the things associated with that was that there was a ton of great products, but liquidity on Solana dried up, right? Nobody wanted to be associated with it. There were all these different issues where you couldn't trade or execute things on chain, and there were still really cool things being created, and there were a ton of devs who were pushing stuff out. They just didn't have the user base that really wanted to start putting more money at risk. Some of this was based around, liquid staking tokens were depegging. There were issues around borrow-lend platforms. All these fundamentals that you see exist across a lot of different L1s were running into some problems. And what Bonk did a good job of was bringing that attention and that capital back into the market to the point where people were interested and excited about it. And all these things that still existed that we didn't create, really got to get highlighted. And now Solana as a chain is able to be utilized for a ton of different DePIN projects, is able to be, a financial center. It's, continuously seeing record numbers of not only like individual developer efforts, but also in terms of the amount of transactional volume and the individual transactions that it's processing. And all these things were still there without Bonk. We were just really good at getting people to pay attention to it, to trust a little bit more inside of their offerings and their capital, and really keep rewarding all the people who were participating on Solana at that time.
Recently, the Solana ecosystem has really become known for meme coins and platforms like Pump.fun. What do you think that means for the perception of Solana? You just mentioned a whole slew of projects that have nothing to do with meme coins that are building on Solana, but Solana has really become the place known for memes and sometimes rugs. What does that mean for those projects and for you?
Yeah, 2021 was the year of BSC as the chain for all these different areas. Then it became, you were foolish if you weren't launching something on Ethereum because that's where all the liquidity was, that's where all the interest is. And I think the chain is more so just a function of what's the smoothest, easiest, best experience for launching any of these different financial products. Pump has done an incredible job of very much simplifying the process in terms of what it means to deploy a token and to get it in front of various different eyes. And then you've seen all these different products that have grown up around the trading, the speculation, whether it's spot, perpetuals, it could even be something as simple as like dashboarding infrastructure or data feeds or these aggregators right now that are making it easier to trade these assets. And there's all this secondary infra that gets built on top of what is essentially pure speculation. But the market loves speculation. That's why you have every NHL sportscaster right now who's talking about their 4-leg parlay bets, in terms of how the Leafs were going to do, unfortunately.
Are they going to win the next one? You're Canadian.
I am Canadian.
I'm Canadian too.
I am a long-suffering Calgary Flames fan, so
okay.
I don't enjoy the playoffs. I watch other teams enjoy themselves.
Okay, all right.
But the interesting thing is always getting to see what gets built on top of these speculative markets. Right now, internet capital markets is the meme that's sweeping, everybody's opportunities. Is what does it mean to take as many of these things and put them into on-chain permissionless markets to get easier access to capital, to be able to take a loan regardless of your credit score, and just to have the opportunity in order to invest, wherever you are. And that will go to wherever there's the least amount of friction, wherever there's the most amount of support possible. And right now that's Solana. I think there's a lot of other chains that are doing this as well. I'm not meaning that as a maxi by any way, but I think we're seeing it that there is a significant allocation right now that's going towards how can people be active on Sol.
Nom, that's all the time we have at the desk. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure, and we hope you enjoyed your time at Consensus.
I am always happy to be here. Thank you again for having me. It's wonderful.
Thanks for coming.
That was Bonk core contributor Nom.